I'm a little late, I admit it. We're already in 2025. But I swear I didn't forget my promise from last year. I just wanted to make sure Nintendo didn't surprise us with a shadow drop on December 31st, 2024. Yeah, let's go with that. Now, we've come to the end of another year of Nintendo games, media, news, and announcements. Just like I did for 2023, let's take a look back at 2024 and see how Nintendo performed. Which months had the most news and releases? How frequently did Nintendo project adverts into our eyes? And most importantly, was 2024 better than 2023? All these questions and more will be answered today. So buckle up, it's time for a deep dive into Nintendo's 2024 output. Last year, many of you told me you enjoyed the chronological format of my video, so I'm sticking with that approach again. I won't waste time explaining the ground rules again, but if you're curious about them, check out the Nintendo in 2023 video. This year though, I've made a few changes based on your feedback. I'll explain them after our deep dive, so stick around. We'll be comparing 2024 to 2023 to see which year was objectively better for Nintendo. Though let's be honest, we all probably know the answer. As usual, January was a quieter month as players recovered from the holiday season. Nintendo's biggest release was Another Code Recollection, a remake of the two Another Code games, now with modern controls that don't require the DS stylus or Wii Remote's point-and-click features. If you haven't already, check out my video retrospective on Another Code to learn why this series rocks. This was the only new game from Nintendo this month, but if you turn your attention to NSO, both Golden Sun and Golden Sun Lost Ages were added to the expansion pass. A couple of major Nintendo Switch titles also saw updates this month. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet received the epilogue to its DLC campaign in a free update, and Gyarados got added to Pokemon Unite as a new playable character. Meanwhile, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate received two new Spirit events, as teased at the end of 2023. The first was All Nintendo, featuring characters from Tears of the Kingdom, Splatoon 3, Pikmin 4 and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Additionally, we saw the release of the Noah and Mio amiibos for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Then the second Spirit event added 3 spirits from third parties: WBSCE Baseball Power Pros by Konami, 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim by Vanillaware, and Hades by Supergiant Games. Ending off the month, we have a couple of Fire Emblem updates. The Choose Your Legends 8 poll for Fire Emblem Heroes began slightly earlier than usual actually, and then an update to the official Fire Emblem World website happened. They updated the site in January to begin including characters from the third game in the series, Mystery of the Emblem, and over the year continued to update the site with new games up until Awakening. With the exception of 3 houses, for some reason, every game from Fates onwards has yet to be added, but at this pace they will all be there by the end of 2025. The month ended on a somber note when a Nintendo Live event in Japan had to be cancelled due to bomb threats. It was a disappointing and unfortunate incident, and behaviours like this should not be tolerated. February kicked off with 2 concerts originally planned for Nintendo Live, the Legend of Zelda Orchestra and the Splatoon 3 Deep Cut concert. Both were streamed globally on YouTube for fans worldwide to enjoy. Nintendo released 2 major titles in February, a remake of Mario vs Donkey Kong and Splatoon 3 Side Order, the final DLC for Splatoon 3. A demo for Mario vs Donkey Kong was also made available. In terms of game updates, Miraidon was added to Pokemon Unite, and there was a Pokemon-themed Spirit event for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, featuring characters from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and its DLC. February also saw the release of the Sora amiibo, officially completing the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate amiibo collection. For now. The big highlight of February though was the announcement of the first Nintendo Direct of 2024, though it was technically a partner direct. While it mostly featured third-party content, as the name would imply, Nintendo did end the show with a surprise announcement of Endless Ocean Luminous, a new game in the Endless Ocean franchise, scheduled for a May release. Fans of retro games were also in for a treat, as the Direct announced a slew of classic Rare titles coming to NSO, including Blast Corps, Snake Rattle and Roll, RC Pro-Am, Battletoads and Battle Maniacs, and Killer Instinct. Japan, however, got an exclusive treat. Mother 3 was finally confirmed for the Game Boy Advance NSO, kicking off Hobonichi's year of Mother celebrations, which included new merchandise and a gallery with original Earthbound development documents and models. I actually got to go to that event in person, even though all of this was exclusive to Japan. Additionally, we had the annual Pokemon Presents, which announced 2 new titles, Pokemon TCG Pocket, a new mobile game based on the Pokemon trading card game that released later that year, and a tiny peek at Pokemon Legends ZA, the next mainline game slated for 2025. March was Mario month, with the biggest release being Princess Peach Showtime. Nintendo also celebrated Mario Day with a Mario Direct, hosted by Miyamoto himself. This presentation gave us release dates for both Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door HD and Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, plus Dr. Mario, Mario Golf and Mario Tennis were all added to NSO's Game Boy lineup. However, the biggest reveal was the announcement that a Super Mario Bros. Movie sequel was in development, with a release date of April 3rd, 2026. After the success of the first film, this was hardly a surprise, but still cool nonetheless. Outside of the presentation itself, a demo for Princess Peach Showtime dropped, more Mario Lego got announced, and the final Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Spirit event was revealed, being entirely Mario themed, with spirits from Super Mario Bros. Wonder and Princess Peach Showtime. There were a few non-Mario related events in March. F-Zero Maximum Velocity, the final Game Boy Advance game left from Nintendo's initial announcement of them, released, meaning that we are all in the dark now on what retro titles Nintendo will be providing for us. April was the first month without a new Nintendo Switch title by Nintendo, but we did get an NSO update with the very exciting Iggy's Wrecking Balls and G-Extreme for the Nintendo 64. Japan got Blast Corps instead, after missing out on it in February due to Mother 3. There was also a Super Nintendo update, releasing Wrecking Crew 98 outside of Japan for the very first time. There were some minor game updates also. Princess Peach Showtime got a Tetris 99 event, Phalanx, the best new Pokemon, was also added to Pokemon Unite, a new Animal Crossing Lego set based around KK Slider was announced, and April did give us a presentation in the form of an indie world. But overall, April was the quietest month all year from Nintendo. In May, Nintendo gave us 2 major releases, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door HD and Endless Ocean Luminous, the latter also receiving a Tetris 99 event. Arika really showing their bias with that one. We also got the announcement of Nintendo World Championship NES Edition, a spiritual successor to the NES Remix series, scheduled for July 2024, the anniversary month for the Famicom. It wasn't just a new game announced by Nintendo this month though. They made a lot of headlines in May, some good and some bad. On the negative side, the Donkey Kong Country theme park was delayed out of my summer holiday in Japan and all the way into winter, and I shed many tears. For those in the US though, Nintendo confirmed Super Nintendo World in Orlando for 2025, adding another location for the Western market. Maybe next time they can give us a park outside of America, hey? More exciting, however, Nintendo confirmed that the Switch successor was on its way, and would be revealed by the end of the fiscal year. And thus, the most painful era of leaks and rumours would commence, with Nintendo fans driven to the point of insanity. Next month for sure. At least we also got a confirmation of the usual June Direct, even if it would be Switch 1 focused. A LEGO Zelda set based on the Great Deku Tree was announced, and Game Boy NSO saw an update to celebrate the platform's anniversary, adding in several of its missing launch titles like Super Mario Land. And for Japan exclusively, for the Frogs the Bells Toll, the last of the Game Boy games previously announced by Nintendo. Also in May, Nintendo acquired Shiver Entertainment, a surprising move for the company. Nintendo don't usually acquire other companies, and they didn't have a major established relationship, unlike with Next Level Games, so this surprised many. We'll have to see what Nintendo has in store for Shiver in the future, but given the company's track record, the assumption is developing ports for the Nintendo Switch 2. Whenever that is. June was Gamer Christmas, as Nintendo dropped its major and turns out only Nintendo Direct of the year. In a packed presentation, we got a glimpse of upcoming 2024 titles like The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, Mario & Luigi Brothership, and Super Mario Party Jamboree. There were also reveals for Donkey Kong Country Returns HD and Metroid Prime 4, both launching in 2025. Finally, footage for one of the first Nintendo Switch games ever announced. It only took them 7 years. Bringing it back to the present day, not video present day, but timeline present day, Nintendo's big release of the month was Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, coming right at the tail end of June. NSO saw a surprising amount of updates this month, starting with Mega Man 1 through 5 on the Game Boy. Many thought it was a sign of a new Mega Man game on its way, and many were disappointed yet again. From Nintendo, we saw updates to both the Game Boy Advance and Nintendo 64 libraries. The handheld gave us Metroid Zero Mission and The Legend of Zelda A Link to the Past plus 4 Swords, completing the system's Metroid and Zelda lineups. And on the 64, the West finally got the mature 17 plus NSO app that Japan received the previous year with GoldenEye. As the West already had GoldenEye, this app instead came with Perfect Dark, the more mature successor, and the original Turok exclusively in the West. Lastly, June had another update for Tetris 99 and Pokemon Unite, adding a theme for F-Zero 99 and Ceruledge as a character respectively. July was all about the Famicom for its 41st anniversary. For its 40th anniversary, Nintendo opened a website dedicated to the platform and had been slowly updating it over the 12 months, with every Famicom and Disk System game they ever published. The website was really cool, with some of the highest quality pieces of art for these games we'd ever seen. It is worth checking out, even if you can't read any of it. To cap off these celebrations, Nintendo did 3 things. The first was a massive NSO drop for Famicom games, adding in the missing Japan launch year titles, as well as several major games that had yet to be added. Donkey Kong Jr. Math, Golf, Mac Rider, and Urban Champion were all added to the service globally, and then Japan received Mahjong, Gomoku Narabe Renju, and Famicom Mukashi Banashi Shin Onigashima. And then in the West, we received 2 more classic rare titles, Cobra Triangle and Solar Jetman. The second Famicom-based event was the release of Nintendo World Championship NES Edition, the Big N's only new game for this month. And finally, the last and best of the Famicom announcements was Emio the Smiling Man Famicom Detective Club, the first new entry in the Famicom Detective Club series since Part 2, with Nintendo officially committing Satellaview erasure. Nintendo confused us all when it dropped its cryptic Emio trailer on social media one day, and after a week of hype around it, they unveiled it was a part of this classic adventure series. Whether that created new sales or just created disappointed gamers, we are yet to find out. There were a couple of non-Famicom related announcements and updates in July. The biggest was the addition of basketball to Nintendo Switch, a rather random update coming 2 years into the game's life. Ho-Oh was added to Pokemon Unite, and the Starfy trilogy of games were added to the Game Boy Advance NSO in celebration of Japan's Ocean Day. Maybe. And lastly, the Grand Festival, Splatoon 3's final Splatfest, was announced alongside the confirmation of 4 more amiibo. 2 new Squid Sister and Off the Hook amiibo with their Splatoon 3 designs. These amiibo would launch alongside the Grand Festival in September. But before then, we have to get through the most important month of the year because it was the month that Emio came out. Only a single month from reveal to release, what a bold move. There was some Splatoon content to distract series fans though, as Side Order got a Tetris 99 update, and in lieu of the usual August Pokemon Direct, we instead got Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red Team added to Game Boy Advance NSO. Beyond this, Animal Crossing got some attention this month when its latest LEGO set launched, and then its mobile game, Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, announced it would be ending service after 7 years. At the end of the month, Nintendo gave us a handful of presentations, with an Indie World Plus Partner Showcase double feature that caused the minds of Switch 2 theorists to begin running wild. And right as they saw a Nintendo Direct appear on the horizon, it turned out to be for the Nintendo Museum, showing off several of its attractions and opening up a ticket lottery for participants. This month for sure, said the Switch 2 hopefuls, but Nintendo had other plans as it lobbed The Legend of Zelda at us with both a LEGO set and Echoes of Wisdom releasing. The final Splatfest took place as promised, with the Squid Sisters taking the win for Best Idol Group of the three, showing that you can't beat a good classic. Speaking of classics, we got an SNES update this time, adding only the hypest of titles like Big Run and Cosmo Gang The Puzzle. Japan also got the actual classic Otome game Angelique, while the West got their second Battletoads game of the year with Battletoads and Double Dragon, as well as a Western release of Kunio-kun no Dodgeball Daio Zenin Shugo, which was previously Japan exclusive. More exciting than all of this though, F-Zero 99 got a major new update, finally adding in the Satellaview content to the game, including tracks and cars. For anyone in the F-Zero and Nintendo preservation community, this is a major deal as a lot of this content has never been properly preserved or made easily available before. While it's not the actual BS F-Zero game, this update showed that Nintendo were willing to take F-Zero 99 beyond just the SNES original, and that is very exciting. Lastly, Armorogue got added to Pokemon Unite, completing the duo with Cerulege, and Endcube announced it was changing its name to Nintendo Cube, following Nintendo fully acquiring Dentsu's remaining shares in the company a year prior. The F-Zero love continued into October with the release of F-Zero GP Legend, and its sequel F-Zero Climax on the Game Boy Advance NSO. These anime tie-in games are some of the rarest F-Zero games out there, with Climax being the last ever entry released until F-Zero 99 dropped on the Nintendo Switch. They weren't the only NSO games for October, however, as Banjo-Tooie fulfilled the original's promise and came out almost exactly 2 years after the original did on NSO. And for Halloween, we received Shadow Man and Turok 2 Seeds of Evil for the mature NSO app. Several different Nintendo projects were released in October. Super Mario Party Jamboree was the company's big game for that month, but Pokemon also wasn't slouching, with Pokemon Unite seeing Darkrai added and the Pokemon TCG Pocket mobile game launching to massive success. Beyond this, however, both Nintendo Music and Nintendo Alarmo were announced, exclusive to NSO members. A music app and an alarm clock were not on many folks' bingo cards for Nintendo, and both were met with confusion, but we still ate it up all the same. The Nintendo Museum also opened its doors in October, and I really want to go. Seriously, Nintendo, why couldn't you have opened this and Donkey Kong Country in the summer like you had originally planned? But we weren't without exciting game announcements in October. Randomly dropped onto social media, we finally got confirmation of Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, the final Xenoblade Chronicles game not on Nintendo Switch already, and truly making this generation of Nintendo monolith softs to control. And then Sakurai pulled a Nikocado Avocado on the gaming community by revealing the last 2+ years of his YouTube career were actually all pre-recorded back in 2021-2022, and he had been secretly working on a new video game project since spring of 2022. Will it be Super Smash Bros. Related? Kid Icarus related? Something entirely new? I guess we won't have long to wait if it's been in development for nearly 3 years now. November 2023 saw the start of the Mario RPG renaissance, so it's only fitting that a year on, we get the end of it, with the launch of Mario & Luigi Brothership, a brand new entry in the series from its new developer Acquire. This marks the final Nintendo Switch game released by the Big N in 2024, and it's a sign of the company slowing down, as there weren't many announcements and releases from this point on. The Zelda movie that was announced the prior year got a 2020X release date, confirming that we will see it at some point in the next half-decade, and Psyduck got added to Pokemon Unite. Hooray! The Mega Drive NSO app received its first update in a while with 3 new games, ToeJam and Earl, Panic on Funkotron, Vector Man, and Mercs, which also meant 2024 saw an update happen to every single NSO console. And Nintendo went completely bananas with Donkey Kong marketing. A Super Nintendo World Direct dropped announcing the Donkey Kong Country theme park would be opening in December at USJ, and then the Donkey Kong Land trilogy all got dropped on NSO with a week gap between each, the third entry actually dropping in December. Presumably, this is both to build up to the park and the new HD version of Returns in January. And then, to end off the month, Animal Crossing Pocket Camp shut its campsite gate forever. And then it reopened them again a week later with the release of Animal Crossing Pocket Camp Complete Edition, an offline version of the game that was no longer free, but with no microtransactions and the ability for players to transfer the campsites they spent the last 7 years building up over to a new game, so that they can keep playing. It was a really nice surprise, and I hope Mario Kart Tour and Fire Emblem Heroes get similar treatments when they eventually end their service in the future. Anyway, December was a bit of a nothing month for Nintendo from this point on, as they didn't show up at the Game Awards in any capacity, and spent the month focused on releasing any final promised updates. Donkey Kong Country opened up, and with it the DK and Diddy Kong Power Band amiibo released, and Tinker Tong was added to Pokemon Unite, the final character of the year. And then finally, Tetris celebrated its anniversary. While the Tetris company handled most of this, releasing the compilation game Tetris Forever, Nintendo played their part in the celebrations through NSO and Tetris 99. Both Tetris Deluxe on the Game Boy and Tetris for the NES, one of them being the most popular version of the game ever, got released on Nintendo Switch, and Tetris 99 had two separate events take place, one for the Tetris anniversary, and then a final event for Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, capping off Nintendo in 2024. And that does it for the year breakdown, but before we go over the analysis, I just want to thank everyone for subscribing, and for remaining subscribed, as I know I kind of went on a bit of a hiatus in the last 2 quarters of the year, I'd say. I went to Japan over the summer and recorded quite a lot of cool things for both this channel and Source Gaming, but the workload has been quite excessive, and it's really taken away from the free time I've had for this channel, especially with a full-time job that I also started when I got back from Japan that is a proper 9 to 5 that's taken up a crazy amount of time. But in 2025 I'm going to be paying off that long wait with a bunch of new pieces of content, both for this channel and on Source Gaming. So if you do want to see that, especially if you're fans of Super Mario, then I would recommend subscribing to the channel now. I have a bunch of videos already in production with scripts written or recorded, so updates are going to be a lot more frequent here, I promise. Okay, with that interlude done, it's time for a breakdown and analysis. In total, Nintendo released 13 games across 2024, discounting retro games on the NSO services. Of these 13, 2 were mobile games, Pokemon TCG Pocket and Animal Crossing Pocket Camp Complete Edition. The latter is a weird one, as it really is an enhanced version of the existing Pocket Camp, but it is treated as a separate app with its own features, so technically it counts as a new release. Of the remaining 11 games, 1 was a remaster, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, and 3 were remakes of older games. Another Code Recollection was actually a remake of 2 games combined into one collection, so you could count it as 2 separate titles. I won't be though. It is funny how similar this is to 2023, which also saw a remake of 2 games combined into one package with Advance Wars. 2023 also got a remake in February as well with Kirby Return to Dreamland Deluxe. Comparing 2024 with 2023, last year saw Nintendo release 4 more games in total. Interestingly, they released the same amount of mobile games and almost the same amount of remakes and remasters. 2024 ended up with more remakes launching, but 2023 had some ports in it thanks to Pikmin 1+2. 2024 is left with 7 completely original Nintendo Switch titles releasing over the year, 1 less than 2023. In 2023 there was a nice variation in the series being represented by Nintendo, but in 2024 there is a clear split taking place. Just over 50% of all the Nintendo Switch games released belong to the Super Mario series, and the remainder were mostly from niche C-tier Nintendo franchises. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is the one outlier, being this year's Zelda title, showing Nintendo is still committing to Zelda as an annual franchise. And it's a smart decision, because just like last year, Zelda has taken the prize for Nintendo's best-selling game of the year with 2.48 million. This is way lower than what Tears of the Kingdom got, but we only have the first week of sales available for Echoes of Wisdom, so it's almost certainly much higher now. All the other million sellers were Mario titles. I am curious to see if Mario and Luigi Brothership manages to or not. My very easy prediction in last year's video was that Super Mario RPG would break the million barrier, and that came true, so I hope that Mario and Luigi can do the same. When you count mobile games, Nintendo released a new title every single month of 2024, except April, with May and October being the busiest with 2 releases each, and at least one Mario title in both. Moving on to DLC, and compared to 2023, 2024 saw a significant drop. This is where I need to throw my hands up and correct a mistake I made in last year's video. There, I said that there were only 2 new Pokemon Unite characters added to the game in 2023, but this was very wrong. My source that I was using to follow Pokemon Unite was just not good at listing when a new character was added to the game. The total newcomers added was actually 14. I missed 12 characters. And so that brings 2023's total DLC updates to 30.
But wait! There's more!
One thing I didn't count in 2023 but did in 2024 were updates to Tetris 99 and F-Zero 99. For the latter, I'm only going to count major updates, like when they add new tracks, which is what I'll do for 2023 as well. This gives us 4 DLC updates for F-Zero 99 and 7 for Tetris 99 in 2023, which brings the actual total pieces of DLC from that year up to 41. In 2024, we only got 27 pieces of DLC. With Tetris 99, 2024 had one less theme than 2023, but F-Zero 99 was actually up by 1. But if you consider that F-Zero 99 actually came out in 2023 and count that itself as an update, then it's an even 5 each. As for Pokemon Unite, it got 9 characters in 2024, which is 5 less than 2023. There was also the surprise basketball update to Nintendo Switch Sports, rounding out the free updates. So, with all those free updates dropping in number compared to the previous year, what about the paid DLC? Also significantly less, with only 2 DLC drops, down from the 15 the year prior. These were the Scarlet and Violet Epilogue and Splatoon 3 Side Order DLCs, the latter being the biggest DLC of the year. 2024 had one thing that 2023 didn't though: updates to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Hooray for fans of PNGs. Now onto NSO, which saw its best year ever in 2024, with 60 new games added to the service. 63 if you include the 3 previously Japan exclusive titles that got released to the West this year. This was across 26 updates, with every month getting at least one NSO drop, and every system on the service receiving an update. Looking at the expansion pass specifically, it only saw an update in 10 months of the year, just like in 2023. However, the exact months skipped were different. Still, there's a chance of a pattern forming here, so let's just see how it goes in 2025. Regarding those 26 updates, it is important to point out that I counted the updates per system. For example, in February we saw a big NSO announcement that added in a game for the Nintendo 64, Game Boy Advance, NES and Super NES. While all these games were added on the same day, I count this as 4 updates, because it was 4 systems getting updates. It's also worth mentioning how weird some updates were this year, like the Donkey Kong Land trilogy, which were all released a week apart, turning what could have been 1 update into 3. While 2024 did have a couple of region-specific updates, with February 2024 giving Japan Mother 3 and the rest of the world games by Rare, there was only one instance where a single region saw an update without anything happening in the other. This was the 2024 Halloween NSO update for the West, which saw Turok 2 and Shadow Man added to the mature NSO app. With those clarifications in mind, February saw the most updates with 4, but the month with the most games was July, caused by the Famicom Anniversary and Starfy trilogy dropping then. Alright, let's go through each specific system in release order and compare them to last year. The NES received 3 updates, one less than 2023, but it received 13 games added to its service instead of 4, a massive upgrade. Of these games, 3 are Japan exclusive and 4 are Western exclusive, and Mystery of Atlantis was made available worldwide after being added to the Japan NSO in a previous year. For the SNES, it received 3 updates just like in 2023, but once again saw a huge increase in titles, jumping up from 4 to 11. In 2023, there was really only 1 completely new Super Nintendo game added, whereas this year there were 9. Of these 9, 2 were US exclusive and 2 were Japan exclusive. Another clear win for 2024. For the Sega Genesis, however, it was the opposite case. 2024 only saw a single update with 3 games, whereas 2023 saw 2 updates with 8 games. A clear step backwards. Moving on to the Game Boy now, 2024 saw 7 updates with 16 games added, one of which was Japan exclusive. 2023 saw 7 updates as well, but with 19 games added. However, Game Boy NSO started in 2023, so that can explain the additional games. With that in mind, I want to say that this makes the total updates and games similar in both years, but as I stated earlier, the DK Land games all came as separate updates, turning 1 into 3, so there are weird circumstances for both years. Nintendo 64 is up next, and it received 5 updates with 8 new games added. However, 5 of these 8 games were exclusive to the West, with 3 of them being part of the mature NSO app. This is actually the same amount of games as 2023, but across fewer updates, as 2024 had more instances of 2 games being added to the service at the same time, all of them being Western-only games. And then finally, we have the Game Boy Advance, receiving 7 updates and 12 games. Even though Game Boy Advance NSO started in 2023, 2024 beat it in updates and nearly in games added, just down by 1. Of these games, 1 was exclusive to Japan, and that was Mother 3. All in all, the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance received the most updates this year with 7 each, but the Game Boy won out in terms of total new games added with 16. That's it for games released, but what about Amiibo? 9 Amiibo were released in 2024, 2 less than the 11 of 2023. Of these 9, 4 were announced for this year, and for what I think might be the first time ever, we have no new Amiibo on the horizon. The Super Smash Bros. Line has officially ended, as has Splatoon, so the future of Amiibo is uncertain, at least for now. We'll just have to wait for the Switch 2 to see if anything new gets announced. Speaking of stats that are down, we had 8 presentations this year, 1 less than 2023, but that's only if you combine the Indie World Plus Partner Showcase as it was aired. If you split them up, as they were 2 separate shows technically, then it was equal. 2022 had 10 presentations, so we may have a rough idea of how many shows Nintendo puts out in a year now, give or take. What those shows are, however, is a different matter, as we only got 1 General Nintendo Direct and 1 Pokemon Presents, both down from the previous year. In those missing presentations' place, we got 2 partner showcases and a Mario-specific Direct for Mario Day. There were 2 Indie Worlds again, and then 2 non-video game Directs with the museum and theme park. Overall, 50% of the year was spent without a presentation. From February to April, there was at least 1 a month, and then from that point on it went skip, show, skip, show, skip, show, skip. Lastly, let's look at the games announced, excluding NSO. This was less than the previous year, with only 11 games instead of 16. Your first thought on hearing this might be to think Nintendo is winding down in the face of the Nintendo Switch 2, but actually, 11 is still 1 more than 2022 got, so it's not that unusual. Even the amount of games announced in 2024 for 2025 was similar to the number of games announced in 2023 for 2024. Moving into 2024, we knew of 5 games, and now moving into 2025, we know of 4. I'm counting Metroid Prime 4 as a new reveal this year, even though it had technically been announced prior, and we're just seeing a trailer for it finally. But I did the same thing in 2023 with Detective Pikachu 2, so I'm being consistent. June was the month with the most games announced, but this is no surprise, as it was also the only month with a Nintendo Direct in it. For the 2025 games, we have a title scheduled for January and March, and then the remaining 2 are for later in the year. This is similar to past years, although 2023 had a game in February as well. The February game is not consistent, however, as 2022 didn't have one either. Going into 2024, we didn't have any dates for Paper Mario and Luigi's Mansion 2, and they ended up both releasing in May and June of that year, so could this be a potential spot for Metroid Prime 4 and Pokemon Legends Czar? Our 2 mystery date games of 2025? Pokemon is usually a November release, but the first Legends title launched in January instead, so there's nothing saying it has to be. I think it really depends on the Nintendo Switch 2, this big pattern-breaking launch that's going to take up most of the attention for Nintendo in 2025. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see in next year's video how that will mess with the data. For now, this has been my Nintendo in 2024 breakdown and analysis. Overall, when compared to 2023, I think 2024 was a much weaker year in almost every regard. The stats were down on all fronts, presumably a result of Nintendo preparing themselves for the Switch 2 launch. That said, NSO was objectively better in 2024 than it was in 2023. It didn't have any new systems launching, and yet it managed to have more games and updates. It was a strong year for NSO. Anyway, that does it for this video. With the Nintendo Switch 2 finally revealed and coming out in 2025, let's see if Nintendo can have a strong launch for it, like it did with the Switch 1 in 2017. Or will 2025 be not too dissimilar to past years? I guess we'll find out in 12 months.